I've driven a lot of cars in the past. I think almost all Protons. Used to have Polo, GTI, Mark 6R. I've driven GTI 7, Mark 7R, A45. They are really good cars. But the problem is when you take the skin away, they deliver you something of a clinical performance. So right now, umur pun dah meningkat, you don't even go that fast anymore. So macam people like me, we always prefer something that we can always enjoy. It doesn't have to be fast, but it gives you a sense of enjoyment when you drive. That's the reason why I picked this car. Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon. My name is Firdaus. This is actually my money pit. Everything I have, I've thrown everything inside it. This is Satria Neo Club Sport. It's made by Proton Motorsport R3 back in 2008. It was originally developed for one big race, a total of 18 being built. So far on the road, bila I count balik and try to trace, there are probably about 6 or 7 on the road at the moment. I have owned several Satria Neo, even Satria GTI, and this is my favourite one, and I can tell you why. Number one, it is totally prepped and built to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to give driving satisfaction. And it'll be very happy when you take it down to Sepang, to the track, to drive on the Sunday drive, Awana, and anywhere else. But it has some additional modifications that we put into it from the ex-owner, which is my friend. Totally in retrospect, it has been boosted up by supercharger. It's running probably about 150-160 horsepower on mainline dyno, tuned by DNT. Obviously, the guy know what they are doing. And then dari segi track record, we managed to get into 245.2 driven by me. So kalau for people who are better driver, macam Fazil ke, macam season well racers, I think this car can do 242, 243. So when Proton R3 build this, these are the list of mods that have been done. Number one, they have completely stripped out the car. So the car weighs about 1000 kilo, 1050 dry. Kita ada Recaro TSG with original railings and the base being set up to give you a better optimum driving position. There's a Momo, there's a FIA back then, 6-point roll cage, cut-off switches, this thing which is coilovers from D2, 12 kilo front, 10 kilo front and 8 kilo rear, giving optimum balance. And the rest of it are pretty much plain Jane Satria Neo with silver color. Okay. So when I got the car, when my friend got the car, he actually installed Sprintec supercharger together with my VEC gearbox with LSD, giving a much better feel when it comes to power. So when I got the car back in tail end of 2017, we improved it by stages. We put in cams from Matspeed. Then we look into the throttle body conversions from drive-by-wire to cable by works, so that I can get a much more responsive feel. We boosted up a little bit with bigger injector in terms of fuel, and overall it's giving me with one objective in mind lah, which is I wanted to have a car that maybe have a resemblance dengan Porsche GT cars, right? Something that we can drive every daily, and then we can take it to the track without any need of modifications. But at the moment, it is very biased towards the track. I rarely drive it, but whenever I drive it, I feel happy with it. Except I have to pay more tolls and more petrols more than any other cars at the moment. visually what we are looking at, the whole body kit ni sebenarnya it was a prototype done by R3, which eventually come out as a official product, which is the lips now becoming a standard item in Satria Neo R3, the red color 2012. So we look into actually last time Proton R3 dia ada bagi Proton this S1K rims, dia bagi 2 sets, but unfortunately it couldn't fit my brakes. I'm running on endless brakes right now, so I have to swap with R30 cap ayam. So these are bonnet pins, so that it gives me flexibility to, one thing is to make sure they are tight, another thing is easier for us to take it out when we need to. Then we look into other stuff. Actually there's nothing much you can see underneath, right? Here is actually used to be a fog lamp. So what we do is that kita engage GME untuk buat custom air duct, so supply cooler air so that it can cool my brakes. So right now I'm running 295mm 4 ports endless brakes with endless, I think if I'm not mistaken, CCR pads. Yes, CCR pads. Then we move on. Other than that, we have make sure that we have toe straps here. Make sure that the moment I got into a gravel ke apa ke, senang kita nak boleh take it out, tarik kita ni. Happens before. Then we look into the rest of the things, semua sama. R3 spoiler, it was the first made for this car, then subsequently dia bagi pada the rest of the R3 Neos. This is cut off switch, so in case of anything, so the we can actually cut off the ignition lah, so to protect the car. So we have it inside and outside. Inside, what you see is basically there are no carpets, totally stripped down, Satria Neo. This is Recaro TSG seats, among the best in the market, with original Recaro railings. But more importantly, what R3 have done is that they modify balik the seat punya base to even lower, so that I can have a much more optimum seat position. So other than that, we're looking at the what used to be an FIA regulated 6-point roll cage back then for 2013. It was a bolt-on type. We have Momo tuner together with a quick release. Other than that, it's actually plain Jane Satria Neo. There's nothing much inside it. Okay, whatever you see, all the modifications have been done. Sebenarnya, we want to mask it away so that people don't see it. So that whatever we do in terms of modifications, it delivers 3 things in mind. Proton ada R3 kan, I have my 3Rs also. So one is response on the throttle, to make sure that throttle, the power delivery always responsive whenever I want it. So I press 10%. So it will give 10%. When I press 30%, it gives 30%. Same goes together with the brakes. The brakes, I want to make it more responsive. Then the third one is connect between the two adalah the suspension. So the suspension, when you drive this car, it pretty much connect both the power as well as brakes together, and then it will give you kepuasan pemanduan lah. Very, you will be satisfied driving along the winding roads as long as there's no, I mean the surface was good, it's fine. As long as the surface is smooth, and it will come alive when you drive it in Sepang. Actually, to be honest with you, I don't even plan to buy this car. My brother was searching for a car back then. So happened that we tried to find a Satria Neo because we know the car inside out, so called. But then my friend just let me know that, why not you test drive my car, which is Satria Neo Club Sport. I heard about Club Sport itself, tapi I tak pernah drive. Fortunately, bila I drive the car, I think the first 5 minutes macam I know that this is the car I want to buy. So driving wise, in terms of driving characteristic, the way how I see it, if you drive, first thing you will be happy that this is the best seating position of any Neo comparatively. It has the best seat for Satria Neo. When you drive it, the throttle will give you, I think, close to as much response that you can get. So when you drive it, it doesn't like a slow speed stuff. You feel things like sluggish, or sometimes when you running on aftermarket cams, dia akan jadi macam, like macam kuda-kuda, or English we call it lumpy feeling. But the moment you go from the rev from 3000 all the way 7200 RPM, which is the rev limiter, you'll be very happy. It is not fast, but the power it pulls all the way 45 degrees straight naik ke atas, very smooth. That's the reason why the moment you drive it, you feel nice. So the steering, I think is one of the best thing I've driven, for a front wheel drive, which is that dia lebih responsive. So just after the off center, you feel how macam you drive ride go-kart, right? Every millimeter of rotation of the steering, the car actually moves. So that will give you kepuasan lah bila you drive. So you drive it. So if let's say you lift off in the middle of corner, then of course the rear end will step aside. But that is how a performance car should be. So when I take this to the track, macam dekat Sepang, going towards turn 4 and turn 5, you just floor the throttle at 4th gear. You enter maybe about 125 clicks GPS, and then you exit maybe about 132 GPS towards exit turn 6. And in the middle of the corners, you might be touching about 140. It's because you don't lift. So when you don't lift, you rely the dynamics of the car in order to do position rotations to get through from turn 5 towards turn 6. And that is, I think, the best bet when people drive this car. Okay, other than that, highlights about this car is definitely we managed to get into 245.2 for a Proton Satria Neo on the road. That's actually quite a remarkable feat. Tapi unofficially, I think my friend managed to get into the 243.9. So that 243 to 45, that's the sort of pace of a Satria Neo race car. So that we managed to get. And then we managed to drive it all sorts of roads, Awana, Bukit Tinggi, a couple of other areas, I can't remember, but so all of the things that we tested is a truly nice car to drive. But the low light, I think, is always low lights. The way how I look at it is something that we suffered a total brake failure. So I have no brakes at 165 clicks GPS towards turn 15. So I lost brake. So I masuk dekat dalam this pasir lah. So that is the low lights. So we rebuild back every single thing that has been damaged, and then hopefully we can go it again. But personally, I would like to become a better driver to extract as much as I can get from this car. The gas mileage is not something I'm proud to say. As an average full tank, maybe about 250 kilometers for full tank. That translate about between 16 to 18 liters over 100 kilometers. To me, that's actually pretty severe lah. I think my Golf R pun doesn't consume that much, or none of cars that I know that consume that much. So in the near future, I have many days. Number one is we need to get the LSD sorted out, because right now it's pretty weak, giving me tractions around the corners. We are looking at maybe doing, getting customized ratio so that we can have more optimum power at certain driving range, so that we can have better top speed as a park. That's number two. And then right after that, if we have the money and the budget, maybe we look into rebuilding the engine. But currently the engine still running healthy. It's only about 50,000 clicks odometer, which I'm not so worried about in terms of health. But overall, the rest of the things are very much happy about it. Sport back in 2008. Kita start balik. Start balik.